the foundational knowledge before we actually start the coding. Now, this is something which there's something I mentioned before, but I will remind you. Now, software development, people simply assume that it's all about coding and that's all there is to it. Not really. That whenever I work for a client, whenever I work on a project, at least half the time sometimes would be spent on discussing the project, using tools, getting things ready, solving problems, meeting stuff up with other team members, solving problems which were there before, solving problems after. So there's a lot of stuff which goes on, and the actual coding might actually be very, very less, especially on some occasions and so on. So that is why now before I actually start the coding, now I have my notes here and it tells me that yes, we will start jumping into programming in the next or the session after that. But before that, I have one last topic that I want to explain to you guys. So today is going to be a mix of a little bit of talking and theory. So I hope you have your pen ready. I hope you have your sheets or notebooks ready with you. I got my notes ready here. I got my PowerPoint and everything. So whatever I say, to you, the advice I give you, please remember I am following it myself. So these are battle tested advice. Now, of course, you might go online and Google me and something. I might have written something and I'm not following it. Sure, I'm human. I make mistakes, but most of the time I do follow the advice I give you, especially when it comes to programming. Okay. So with that in mind, my dear students, let's jump in oh, sorry, that was the keyboard. Oh, sorry, professor, 1 second, sir. uh 1 second, yeah. So with that in place, let's jump into session 4. This is a sequel to the previous topic. As always, everything I discuss is linked with the previous video, and every video we are condensing a lot of information. So I request you to watch and rewatch and watch again to the video, because there's too much information coming in there. And then of course there are many avenues wherein you can ask questions, and there are a lot of additional material available. I'll show that. I'll share the links and everything at the end of the session. Also, I'll be sharing like a what is called as a one sheet. You may already have it from the previous session. I'll share it again as well. And at the end of the session, once I finish up with all the theory, all the things I want to talk about, I will also give you a quick demo. And of course, I will be taking questions and stuff like that. Now, the first thing which you want to understand is, when we talk about I'm sorry, professor, something is wrong with my computer. It seems to jump away to the last slide. I don't know why. 1 second, sir.
That's
Let
okay.
me
Don't worry about it. We understand that's the world
yeah,
of
sorry, professor. Yeah.
technology.
Right then. uh yeah, that was like distracting for me, professor. I don't know why that. Sorry. Okay. All right, guys. So like I said, there is a one sheet document which contains an essential info. I'll share it in the chat before the end of the session. But those who are coming back, you already probably have it. Right then. So the big question today, a little bit of theory today, a little bit of theory and some stories and examples from real life, right? So the big question today is the project management. Now, when I say project management, I'm also talking about, so obviously I'm talking about software project management. For example, I'm sure Dr. Walson, is the, education engineer. So I'm sure he uses some kind of a learning management system. It probably has some kind of a planning tool which he uses to plan the student schedule, like, sessions with me, sessions with other tutors, which student is coming in, which student is going in, what files to send, what files not to send. So project management is something that is very much there no matter what task you are doing. So that is a general way of looking at things. However, for me though, I want to talk in the context of software development. Now, the thing about software development, and this is something which applies to your own learning of software as well. Okay. Now, at any given point of time, let me show something to you. Let me quickly come out of this PowerPoint and let me jump in to my GitHub account. We are talking about GitHub, right? So, I mean, of course, I want to show you things at the end of the session, but every now and then I will jump in and show you some things anyway. I like to, get practical when I talk something. I want to show you something as well. So whenever you go to my GitHub account or something like that, you will see that hopefully you'll I'll put this link in the chat. You probably already have it. If you don't, check it out now or after the session. Whatever link I'm sharing you, quickly go ahead and copy paste it to a notepad or something, because I'm not sure the chats remain after the call is over. So what I'm trying to say is, so the thing about being a developer is that every day you can see some dots here, the green dots. They show you all the amount of work that I'm doing. Some of it is client work. Was able to see the green dots here. So yes, and you can see the gap there, Professor. That was the thing I was talking about. I was away from the computer, but anyway, that's for after the session. So every week, every month, as a developer, I have to keep learning new things. But then you think about that for a second, right? I'm learning new things constantly. I also have to handle client interactions. I have to handle projects for those clients. Sometimes I have my own projects as well. For example, we have some projects as well that we'll be building at the end of this very long series of tutorial videos. So there are so many projects. If you think of everything I do, it is like a project. So I have to use some kind of a project management tool, right? Now, at the same time, when I plan sessions for this, I have to think of something that you can also use as well with minimum amount of first. And of course, at the same time, it has to be free as well. So coming back here, so project management is something that you have to do both for your learning and eventually, when you start working for a company, or whether it's a freelancer or a salaried person, or you're working in a team for your college project. Either way, you would need to do some kind of a project management, and you don't have a choice here, because if you don't use these tools, you'll find that you are not able to keep up with the workload that is being assigned to you as part of the team. Or if you're working solo, then you'll find yourself not able to do what you're supposed to do. Okay, that may seem a little vague there, but hope just right now, for instance, let me show you one of my project boards. Okay, so let me just log in here. I mean, I'm already logged in. I'm just bringing it from my second monitor to show you, just to give you an idea how, like a real life example, right? So I'm logging in now, and then this is a project. This is not GitHub Projects though, but it is another software that I'm doing. I'll see, I might make a session of that as well in the future. Yeah, here we go. So Dr. Watson, are you able to see this on the screen right now? So this is one of my own project, guys. Okay, so I have a YouTube channel. I am sure I mentioned it many times. At the end of the session, I usually share with you a lot of links and stuff like that. So for my YouTube channel, it is almost like a massive project. Like if I go right now to my, let me bring that up as well. Let me tell you how complex things can become when we are trying to get things done, and why you really need like, let me go here. And okay, so this is the YouTube channel dashboard, and you can see here on the screen I have videos scheduled to publish all the way till November 27th. So that means, whether I work or not, till November 27th, videos will keep getting uploaded, whether I like it or not. So I build out like a buffer. And this is the project dashboard that, this is something which I might make a session out of it in a future session. This is another brand called Azure Projects. But today we are talking GitHub Pro, but I just want to show you, like, so here, everything I'm working on is listed like this. Dr. Watson, do you see that, sir? So I can, this is like the main thing. And if I go here and I change this, you can see all the plans I am making for my YouTube channel for the next 3 to 6 months, and maybe even beyond. So I need to know, okay, what am I doing when, what topic needs to be done when, what is completed. Like if I open anything here, usually I'll find some notes and links and stuff like that. So this is why the project management tool becomes so important. So this is not the one I'm showing right now. The demo I'm showing is GitHub Projects, but that was just another project which is going on for a long time. So I thought I'll give an idea how you can use it personally. Okay, so what we discussed today at the end, I'll give you a demo about GitHub Projects. Even if you're not part of a team, just for your own learning, you can use the tool that we are discussing today. Okay, your own learning is a project, your office is a project, so everything becomes a project management. And if you're working in a team, it becomes that much more important. So hopefully that make gives you an idea why project management is important. I think I'm saying project management too many times, but the session is about project management. So hopefully that is really okay. And as always, guys, if you have any questions, just put it in the chat. If something is important, I'll reply to it immediately. Otherwise, I will respond to it at the end. The session is usually 40-45 minutes, and then we take the questions, right? Now we come to the case in point. Now, in today's session, I'll be using a specific brand of project management software, and I'm using GitHub Projects. Why am I using this? There are some reasons there. I'll talk about it, but the biggest reason is that the previous session was about GitHub, okay, and I will be using GitHub during all the videos. When we start coding classes, we're going to start picking up coding topics and we'll discuss it. I'll be running and using GitHub constantly. So we are already in the GitHub ecosystem. I mentioned this to you guys as well in the very first session. Your GitHub account is like your developer identity. I like to use the word like that is your developer passport. Like wherever and whatever you do. For example, in one of the sessions, I will be talking to you about CodePen. I probably already have showed it to you, or I might show it again. So I go to CodePen, I go here, and let me just open that in a private window just to give an idea why GitHub is so important. So I go here, let's say I'm trying to log into CodePen, and I'll see here that when I try to log in, I see there's an option to log in with GitHub. Okay, so another tool that we'll be using in one of the future sessions is what is called as Code Sandbox. Again, I try to sign in here. I will see that you will get an option to log in with GitHub. Okay, so I hope I've already emphasized how important the GitHub is. And since we are already in the GitHub ecosystem, we are already part of it, it simply makes logical sense that when you need a project management tool, not when, you have to start using it right away, you might as well stick to the whatever tools are available within the GitHub ecosystem. Okay, that is the main reason why I am insisting that when it comes to project management, software project management, okay. Now I showed you the other one. Like I said, that's another brand. Maybe I'll add it as a bonus session in the future. But right now, because we're already getting familiar with GitHub, that is the main reason why I'm using GitHub Projects. But of course, there are additional reasons as well. Obviously, it is free. A majority of project management tools are actually free. So this is also free as well. Now, I added a word there which says that it is easy to use. Now, that word easy to use can be a little, what do you say, like an opposite word? Because when I show you right now, it might look like I'm too many two things. Like I'll have a quick demo at the end of the video. I might be doing too many things and you might find it difficult to keep track of it. However, the more you use it, the more it becomes easy. Okay, so yes, it is easy to use in the sense that it becomes easy to use once you spend some time figuring out all the different features. Now, I will be talking about the main features. I will even show the main features, right? However, okay, please understand it is easy to use in the sense that it becomes easy after you practice enough. And the third key point is very, very essential. Now, the one of the many things we'll do in GitHub is that we do these things called issues. We keep track of issues. That is the main thing. Every issue is like a task that you're about to do. Okay, so let me just give you an example. So here, let me go back to my GitHub account, right? And I will go ahead and create a repository. Now, I've done this in the previous session, so I'm going to quickly do this. So I will call this AIU live session. I'll just give whatever name I want. Okay, October 7. Okay, and then I'll just leave the description as it is. I'll leave it public, in case you guys want to check it out. I'll add a README file. We are doing JavaScript. So JavaScript falls under Node.js. So I'm going to select Node. License is not, very important, but I'll just, select the general license for MIT license, and then I'll go ahead and create a repository. So right now it is empty, it is fine. Now what I really want to show you is, now imagine this is a project you're working with your teammates, and there are, I don't know, 10 people or 2 people. It's okay. And then the first thing you will do is you'll go to settings, and on the left side you'll see there is something called collaborators. Now I have to enter the code, guys, so I'm just going to grab my phone here, and I think this is something I have mentioned. When you start using GitHub, do not forget to add two-factor authentication. So whenever you're trying to do something, you're supposed to get a pop-up like this. Okay, so I'm just finding the code here. I'm just entering the code. It is inconvenient, but so is security, right? You might as well be secure rather than something going wrong. So let's go ahead and enter the code. Let's see, there you go. Oh, okay, there we go. So this is the very first thing you want to do when you start working on a team project. Create a repository. You can create more repositories, as many repositories you want, because you can link up multiple repositories to a single project. Now go ahead and invite anybody you want. Like right now, I don't have anybody's GitHub account, so I'm not going to invite anybody. But remember, this is where you come and so on. And let's say the issue here, this issue section here on the top right corner. Let me get my marker here. Please remember this part. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for a few seconds there, the circle I drew. So this is the most important thing when you start using GitHub along with all the project management tools that we're talking about in a real project. Okay, first you start using it with yourself, and then slowly start working in a team and things like that. So in programming development, every little thing that we do is usually an issue. Okay, for example, a simple issue in a project would be, okay, create the cloud account on Microsoft Azure. Okay, so when you start a new project, one of the simplest thing we do is we have to go ahead and deploy the software anyway. So what I'll do is, let's say I'm the project manager or something, or I'm working for myself. Now I know this is a task I have to do, and I can put some extra details here. If I don't have any extra details, I can go ahead and type something like this, and I'll go ahead and create a new issue. So there you go. So that's the first thing that I will do. So every time you have an issue, you go back to the issue, and then you simply go ahead and keep creating issue number 2. Now, another issue could be buy a domain name for the business, right? So whenever you have a task to do, so think of every issue as if it is a task. So here I'll go say, okay, guys, we need a domain name before we start building the website. So let's go ahead and make that an issue as well. So every issue is like a task that you have to do. So like this, as the project starts, every time somebody has an idea in the team, they go to the issue section and they start creating all the tasks, all the work that they have to do. So this is a fundamental thing that you'll be doing. So we'll come back to that later. So what I'm trying to show is you can link one project to any number of repositories. So if I go back here, I have a repository here. I'll go to project. Now you see here that right now, this repository is not linked to any project. So I will go ahead and say, I'll create a new project. Okay, and there are a lot of options here, guys. Now this is something you may have heard about, right? You may have heard about this. I have it in my notes here. You may have heard about something called agile project management. People use sprints, people use Kanban boards, and you may have heard those words as well. Now, this is not a session on those, agile project management and stuff like that. But, in a nutshell, these are, methods. They're not like technology or something. These are like systems that are developed and used in the industry when it comes to project development, because, it's called agile because, obviously in a project, so many things are constantly changing. So whatever tools you use must be compliant with such a scenario. So two things that you'll hear a lot in these things is, word like Kanban boards Okay, and then another thing you want here is sprints and stuff like that. A Kanban board is essentially like, I'm going to just go and select the default one, the team planning, and I'll go ahead and say okay, I'll give the project name as AIU live session project demo. Okay, hopefully after this session is over, you'll download the recording and you will do these things on your own. Now, again, I'm only covering the main features, guys. Okay. I'm going fast, but also whenever I feel something is important, I'm kind of slowing down on purpose. So there you go. This is how it looks. Okay. By default, any kind of project will always have three columns. You will have a to do section, you will have an in progress section, and you will have a done section, right? Now, I already have two issues. So let me see if I can add those two issues to this board right now. Okay, these are the key things that you want to remember. There are too many features here that can't be covered in 45 minutes, but I'm going to just cover the basic stuff, right? So let me go ahead and select our repository. Now, what was the repository I created? I think it was called AIU live session October 7th. That is the one. So how did I get that? So again, let me get my marker here at the bottom. In fact, whenever I started using these things, I couldn't find it. So please remember, it's right here. After you create the board, it's in the bottom left corner. You have the option to add your issues. Now you can either add an existing issue or you can create a new issue. Both options are fine, but I'm going to use an existing issue because normally that is how we do it in a project. Like, we get an idea in a specific repository, we go and add it as an issue, and then we bring it to the board. I mean, you can do the reverse as well, but this is a better way of doing it in my experience. So let's come back here. So I'm going to select the repository I just created, and here I can see all the issues show up automatically. This is something I like about this GitHub board. That's another reason why I tell people, for software project management, please go ahead and use, if you're already working on GitHub, this just makes sense. So I have two issues. I'm going to add them one by one. So there you go. Added. I'm going to add the second one. And as I told you, we can create a new issue as well. So let's do that. So I'm going to say, okay, create a new issue. I'm going to say title. I will say hire a front end developer. We're starting a new project, so we need to hire a front end developer, somebody, from somebody online. Just putting it there, and then we're going to go ahead and just click on create. So there you go. So now we have three things that we have to do. It's like a pending task. This is what we call like a Kanban board. Kanban board usually has three things. You have the to do, in progress, done. But if you want to, and I do this a lot because this is not usually enough for me. Normally, I have some extra columns. The standard columns I use are, I always create a column called, prepping, like preparing or prepping. I like to use the word prepping, but if you want, you can use whatever name you want. Use whatever color you want. Just try to use a color which is not already used. Let's use the, I think the blue is not used. And here I'll say put issues or tasks that we are getting ready to begin. Okay, so there you go. Add this one, and then I will hit save. So now I have a column called tracking. And then I also normally create a column called cancelled. Sometimes you think you want something, but then later you realize as the project goes, you don't really need it. So I'm going to always create a column called cancelled, and I'm gonna again pick a color that's not already there. Black is fine, I guess. Cancelled items will come here. Okay, all right, there we go. So normally I usually have 5 columns, but of course, depending on your own project, you can add as many columns as you want. But these are the standard columns I do. And usually I take this prepping column and I put it just before progress. So I know I all I did was just select it and drag it to the wherever I wanted. And the cancelled one, I either put it in the beginning, or if that's too much, then you can just put it after done. And you can, like I said, you can keep creating as many columns as you want. And now let's go ahead and let's say we are now prepping to buy the domain or something. So I'll go here and I can just put it like this. Now, before we do, there's one more thing I need to show you. Now, if I go back to my projects, you'll see that, okay, I have all the projects listed here. So you can create as many projects as you want. So there is no limit on that, right? But right now we are focusing on this one, right? And then here, what I want to do is I want to show you the part that says roadmap. And I find this also very, very useful when I'm working on a project. Okay, normally in a real project, you would have hundreds and hundreds of issues and at least two, three people. So you go ahead and add additional details for each issue. Now, how do you add additional details? What extra details can you add? Now, before we do that, I want to show one more thing. That if you go to settings, I'm just gonna just check with Dr. Watson. Is that making sense, sir? Am I going too fast or am I right? Okay, Dr. Watson says it's all good. Okay, so here, one thing which I do check is this thing called iteration, right? Now, this is part of the sprints that you keep hearing about. Normally, when you're using agile project management, we have the sprint system. Some companies go with a weekly sprint system, some companies go with 2 weeks or 4 weeks and stuff like that. But what I understand is that the default is usually 2 weeks, but you can customize, if you want to. But I'm going to leave the default as it is. So usually you can go ahead and create as many iterations as you want, and you will notice that every iteration is whatever duration you selected. By default, it is 2 weeks. So let's go ahead and save this because it does become useful in a few seconds. So what I'll go back here is I'll go back to my project, and let's go ahead and select any issue. I have one issue here which is in prepping stage. I'm going to put another issue in the progress stage, and let me open this one. So this shows up like this. Now let's try to understand all the different parts here, and this is where majority of the game happens, and this is the most important thing, especially for a project manager. If some of you are hoping to go on to hold leadership positions in the future, then this is where you want to spend some time and try to understand all the information that is available here. The main thing is who created the issue. See, when you're working on a project, you want to know for yourself, okay, who added the issue and then who is dealing with it and stuff like that. So that is where you have on the right side, you have an option called assigning. So let's say I'm the project manager. So obviously I'll be creating the issue and then I'll go ahead and assign it to someone. Now, right now, there's nobody else in my team. So I will go ahead and assign it to myself. But in a real project, you would obviously assign it to a specific person. So think of it this way. Let me just get my drawing here. So let's say you have your project. Let's say this is you, the project manager. So essentially what you do is you go ahead and create as many issues as you want, right? So these are all tasks that need to be done. And then you sit down and assign this to different team members. All right. So how would you do that? If you don't have a project management tool, then you would have to send them an email or a chat message and things like that. I mean, that's okay when it's just two people, but when the moment it becomes more than two people, or when you're working remotely and things like that, then that becomes impossible to manage. So what we do is we use a tool like this, and then here you have a very nice and convenient option called assigning. So you can go ahead and assign as many people as you want to this specific task. Now let's go on to the next one. There is something called labels. Again, I found this to be very useful in a project. So go ahead and assign a label that makes sense. So for example, if you're adding a new feature, if you're doing something really, really new, then go ahead and use the enhancement label. Or if this is a problem that needs fixing, you go ahead and select the bug label. And you'll notice that you can have multiple labels as well. So again, labels become useful when the project grows and you want to do stuff like sorting or searching for a specific thing. So right now, I'll just call this one a enhancement, and I'm just going to leave it at that as it is. So there you go. But if you want to add another label later, you can definitely go and add it. It gets automatically added. Now, next thing is this box here. Now, this is where it's kind of hidden and things like that, but it's actually very, very important, right? So here, let's go dig a little bit deeper on this. Let me just remove that eraser here. Let me just remove the marker. Okay, so now once again, now you want to know some tasks would be have a higher priority, some tasks would have a lower priority. For example, buying a domain name is very, very high priority, right? However, the marketing plan, you probably want to focus on the marketing plan after a month or two when you have your prototype ready or something like that, or you have to give a presentation for your project. So you should ideally build a presentation like the PPT and things like that at the end of, just before you start the presentation, not right away. So you can give that a lower priority and things like that. So that is why, according to me, this is the most important option here. So if something is important, go ahead and give it, P0. If something is, I think higher number means higher priority, if I'm not wrong. So but again, these things are internally discussed. Like in my head, I assume 0 is the higher priority, but in your project, you can call 2 as the lower priority. It's really your call. So I'm going to call P2. No, number is higher number, higher priority. Size, again, again, these are like labels, okay, like how big or small the work is. So if it's a smaller work, go ahead and use XS, like clothing, XS, S, L, M, and XL, like that. So, and finally, estimate. Now, this is called the estimate, like the amount of effort. Now, in GitHub project management, every day you have a limited amount of hours to work. So let's say you have 2 developers, every developer works for 8 hours per day, then that's 16 hours of capacity. So let's say this work takes about 10 hours. So later it is possible for you to find out if you're exceeding an estimate. So I mean, that's like an advanced step, but I'm just showing you right now. Finally, the iteration, we did create iteration. So if something is important, you put it in a specific, the sprint system. So let's say you want something done in the current sprint, you put it in the current sprint. If something should be done later, you go ahead and choose a later sprint. And this gets added to your timeline view that I showed a few minutes ago. So that is something that is again, according to me, is very, very important. So, and the next part which I like is, again, this is something you want to set. It's always a good idea to know when a task should begin, and it's always a good idea to know when a task must end. You must have a beginning for a task, you must have an ending for a task. So that is how like something is either ahead of schedule or behind schedule. So always go ahead and pick whatever date depending on your own plans and stuff like that. So this box, guys, this entire right side area, very, very important. Now there is also another thing here called a milestone. Let me not forget that. Now let me try to get a drawing here. So let me just open a new tab, right? Let me get a marker. So normally what I do when I'm working on a project is, so let's say you have started a project, and then you have like tasks, right? You have tasks, you have many, many tasks that you want to do. There are too many tasks that you want to do, correct? Like this will happen, once you start working on things, even learning, like what you're learning right now, software development. I like to sit down and make plans and then follow the plan one step at a time. Like that YouTube channel thing I showed you. Again, I have detailed plans about what next video I have to do, what material I need, what PowerPoint I have to prepare. Like even for this session, I sit down, I write down a Git plan, and like, okay, last class it was GitHub commands, this class is GitHub project, next class I'm going to start teaching you how to use JavaScript variables and strings and constants and operators. So every plan is being made. Now what you want to do is, you want to start, let me just change the color here, you want to start grouping, right? So start thinking this way, very, very important. You want to start grouping your tasks into milestones. Okay, so very, very important. Like for example, the AIU sessions for me today would be the end of milestone number 1, because once this session is over, I have pretty much covered whatever basics I want to cover. Okay, so I would call this the end of my first milestone. So I would say, okay, show them the VS Code. Okay, show them how to use GitHub repos. Show them how to use GitHub project management. Tell them, why they have to learn JavaScript. So once I do these tasks, that milestone is completed. And then I'll have the next milestone. That will be the JavaScript coding basic, which is going to start from the next session. So GitHub project does have this nice feature called milestones. So go here, and if you don't have any milestones, we have to go ahead and create it. So let me come back to my projects here. And if I come back to my projects and I go back to my repository, hold on, I go to issues, hold on, and here, Dr. Watson, do you see this one, sir? Right here, if you go to issues, you see all the issues, and then somewhere in this corner, it's easy to miss it, Dr. Watson. So you see there's an option called the milestone, sir. So there you go, guys. So very, very important. I mean, everything is important, of course, but this one, sometimes I forget it is there. It's even hard to find sometimes. So you have tasks. Tasks are nothing but issues, but you do want to group them. I told you, like, when you have so many things, you want to organize in a specific way. So when you have, say, 10 issues, you group them into milestones. It's like when you're traveling down the road, you'll see milestones, isn't it? So you see a milestone, like when you, let's say I'm going from my home to my uncle's home. On the way, there is a bakery. So for me, that bakery is like a milestone. When I see that bakery, I'm like, okay, so my uncle's house is 10 minutes from that bakery. So normally I'll stop there, maybe have a cup of chai or grab a bite or something. Or if it's raining, then I would stop near the bakery because I know the guy. So it's like a milestone, a place or a destination, which is not the actual destination, but like a middle thing. Similarly, in your project, you want to go ahead and create some milestones. So let's do that. So go here and go ahead and create a milestone. So I'm going to say, I just call this milestone 1. And if you want to, you can put a due date. It's up to you. And then I'm going to say this is the first milestone, right? So now let's come back to our issues. And I see here, okay, this is the one. So once again, let me go ahead and assign somebody. I don't have anybody in the team right now, so I'll assign myself. As I showed you before, I'll put a label which is appropriate. I'll go ahead and add some priority. Now this one, I'm going to give it priority number 1. I'm going to call this as mini task. I'll estimate this is like 2 hours. I'll put this in the second iteration. I'll start this 15th, and I'll try to end this on the 17th. And finally, now that I have a milestone, I believe this task is part of the first milestone. So I'll go here, and there it is. And it'll keep track whenever you do something. So I'll go back here to issues. Let me go to the second one. I'll assign this also to the first milestone. Okay. You'll see that there's no need to hit save or something. It's all automatic, very, very convenient. Let's go back here. And the third one, and I have the milestone again. So there you go. So if I go back to issues again, I see the milestone. I have the first milestone. See how nicely it becomes? Right? Now let me do another milestone just to show you how cool this becomes and how convenient it is. Let me add a bunch of issue here. Dr. Walton, I hope you're able to keep track, sir. I hope I'm not losing you here. Yes, sir. So let me just add another issue, like I want to generate documentation, right? I'm just going to put the same thing in the description. I'll put that as an issue, and I'll create another issue, new issue, and then here I'm going to say, what is going to be, do a deployment, right? Just coming up with something, nothing, just an example, okay? And what I'll do is these 2 issues, I'll make them part of milestone number 2. So I believe that there are 5 tasks. Now imagine this, when you have 100 tasks, like you saw in my board, right? Like, where did that go? Look at my YouTube channel thing. I have so many ideas for the next 6 months to 1 year. I don't know, what will happen when, and when will happen what. It can go a little bit crazy, right? But still, I see that right now. I can see I have a column called getting hot, so prepping. So these are all the things I'm planning to do next. And if I go here, you'll see that I've already completed so many videos and they all have been completed here. So I do my own tracking, and also you'll notice that each task has subtasks, and there are so many columns, and each column has doing and done and stuff like that. So when things start becoming crazy, and it does become crazy, trust me, when a project starts, you think, okay, the management tool is actually becoming a burden, but not really. Like I said, once you make it part of your lifestyle, once it becomes like muscle memory and things like that, you will realize. And this is so important, because sometimes I'll forget what I'm supposed to do. I'll have a good idea, I would have thought it's a good idea, I've written down some notes, but then after a while I forget it. But with a project management tool, that will never happen. There are hundreds of ideas here, and every time I get a new idea, I come here and add it, I come here and add it, I come here and add it. So I'm telling you, this is the greatest way you can get things done. When I started, there was only one card. You see here, the only one card. But then now this one has some 14 ideas, this one only had 8 ideas, this one has 33 ideas. Each of them has notes and comments and information. So I'm telling you, this will get you very organized and highly productive. So anyway, coming back. So this one, I have 5 issues. So let's go ahead and put them into milestones. So I'll go back to milestones. I'll create another milestone. I have to drink some water, guys. Hold on. Okay, so I will call this one milestone 2. And let's say I'm going to put a due date as 31. And here I'm going to say milestone 2. Okay, there you go. So let's go ahead and click on create on that. Now you'll see here that the second milestone has nothing assigned to it. So we have 2 new issues. This one, right? I'm going to go here. Cool. I'll go here, this one, go here, 2, and voila. And now you can see that I have 2 milestones. And look at this. Let me just get my marker here. You'll see that there is some kind of tracking happening here, which says there are 3 issues in milestone 1, and there are 2 issues in milestone 2. So as and when some of these things are completed, so let me go to milestone 1, take issue number 3, issue number 1 actually, I'll go ahead and say close as completed. So I'm going to say close issue. There you go. And did you notice the moment I did that, the milestone is automatically updated? So imagine this. So if you're a project manager, you're part of a team, there are 10 people working on tens of issues. How do you know what is happening? Like this, very visually convenient. So if I go back to the milestone thing now, it's already updated here on the right side. I go to this one, I go to milestone, and you'll see here how nicely the green bar is filling up. So every day as a project manager, you come here, you look at this, and let's say there are 10 milestones, each of them with some 10 issues, and all of them assigned to different people in your team. One look at this every day before you go home, every day when you come home, you know how much work is happening, how much work is not happening. That is how you get things done. And as always, every time you go to a milestone, you can open the issue, you can find out who is the person responsible for it, you can find out the priority for it, you can find out the estimate for it, you can write comments like, hey, working on this. You can discuss, you can comment, communication can happen, sharing can happen. If there is a problem, you can tell the other person what's happening. So these kind of tools will help you work from across different places. You don't have to be in the same room or even in the same classroom to get anything done. And the more you use these things, and I think I've told this before as well, if you're applying for a job or an internship or something, you start doing these things, and even if you're alone, use it for your own projects. Whenever I apply for a job or a contract, I always show them my own GitHub account. I always show them my own projects. All these projects, they are built alone. They're built by me to show to my clients. I don't have any teammates or anything like that, but I use whatever stuff I can show, like this one. and I go here, I have the website, built for this project, things like that. So everything is there, even though I'm working solo. So when I say project management, I emphasize it is for a team thing. Again, this YouTube channel thing I told you about, obviously I am working alone on this YouTube channel, but this really, really helps me organize all my work, because I'm also doing a lot of other things. I also have some personal life stuff going on, good things, bad things, all of them. So how do you keep track of everything? Suddenly you have to go on an emergency, you have to go on a vacation, so much of disturbance. These tools will help you keep things organized. Okay, so there you go, guys. Those are the main things I want to show you. Now I think I thought I'll just put the theory first and then do the demo at the end. I think I just kind of mixed it up again, but that's how I like it. I like to show as I'm talking. So I've done that. So let me just make sure, go through the PowerPoint quickly and my notes, make sure I didn't forget anything. Project boards, yes. Creating items, yes. Items mean nothing but issues, done. Linking it with issues, done. Creating milestones, done. Project demonstration, I did that while I was talking. So that is also done. This is for the end before I wrap up. And let me just check my notes as well. Yeah, I spoke about agile project management. I told you about the Kanban boards, the sprint system. Where can you use it? I already mentioned. I showed you how I use it. I use a different brand because that's a YouTube channel. The coding things, obviously I use GitHub Projects, but that I'm using with clients. I can't show you any client projects. It's not possible for me to show that to you. But you know what I'm talking about. I've already explained why we use GitHub boards, why project management tools must be used, and why we are using this from GitHub brand. I've showed you how to create repositories. I've showed you how to create issues, milestones, iterations, assigning all the different values, on the right side. This is, like I said, let me just show you again, just to be on the safer side. You don't forget it, right? Let me just go back to the repositories. Let's go to, this one. And as I mentioned, every issue, don't forget this part here on the right side, like these things, guys, very, very important. This is where so much of things happens. Don't forget about these labels, which project, there we go. Milestones, again, it's already set, and there you go. So don't forget all these values and stuff like that. Very, very important. I've already explained how to do that. I've given a demo as well. So there you go, guys. So those are all the things, the main features I wanted to cover today. I hope I didn't rush through. I hope I spent enough time with all of them. Now, before I take questions or something, remember, I've only touched the surface. And while I'm showing these things, while I'm explaining these things, I'm able to do it fast, go here, go there. I'm able to do it because I've spent so much time using them. Okay, so I might have made it look easy. But for you, when you start using it, first start using it for yourself. It can be any project. If you can't think of any software project right now, just apply it to your daily life. You know, you can use project management tools to manage your personal life as well. Nobody is stopping it. You can create a private project so nobody can see, and you can use it to manage your own life. Or another thing which I tell my clients, especially my students, I do, private tutoring and things like that. Use it to manage your own learning. Okay, when you're learning, use a project board to fix every week. You fix like 10 hours, 20 hours of learning time, put in the project board. Every week, every issue is a topic you want to learn. So you'll create an issue called, okay, learn GitHub repositories. That's one issue, one task. Another issue, learn GitHub boards. Create a milestone for it. Like the first milestone is, okay, learn about GitHub repos, Git commands, GitHub projects, practice with VS Code, like that. That's one milestone. So start using these things. If not for anything else, use it for your own learning plan, and then get used to the interface. Try new things, go to settings, all those menus, buttons, create number of columns, create issues, close issues. If you don't have anybody in your team, ask your brother, ask your mother, ask your father, make them create a GitHub account and start using it for your family stuff as well, just to get some practice. And the best part is, when you apply for a job, when you apply for an internship, show them you know how to use these things. Let people know what you can do, right? That is what I always say, show, right? Okay, anyway, so there you go, folks. That is, I think it's already, yeah, already, 40 to 50 minutes is what I have to say. I want to speak more, but we gotta. Right, so that's all from me, Dr. Watson, sir. You have 10 minutes for the questions and things. If there are no questions, of course, I have more things I want to share. But yeah, yes, sir. And I'll drink some water.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Jay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you as well for your attendance, and I hope you did get the most out of this superb presentation by Jay Bachahally Krishnan Vijayasima. A wonderful presentation in the world of computer science, particularly this very, very high level of computer science when it comes to JavaScript in general. And when we combine JavaScript with GitHub, then that can be super complicated, particularly when Jay concluded by reminding you, ladies and gentlemen, that he could only just touch the surface. There is so much you need to master in order to use GitHub projects, to do project management going through GitHub. You need a lot of personal practice. Jay has many times suggested that you just go ahead and open up an account with GitHub. The basic account is free. When you open up that account, you definitely will be able to do the basic personal coaching or training that you need in order to master the presentation here at Atlantic International University. It is time now, brothers and sisters, for your questions. And just before we get there, let me make two quick reminders. Number one, it happens very, very often that some of you attempt to send out personal messages to other participants, like saying that here I am in Madagascar, I am in Honolulu, I am in Brazil, I am in Nigeria, I am in Ghana, I am in Cameroon, and so forth and so on. But please do not try to send out those messages because the system is designed in such a way that you may not communicate with each other. It will be too distracting, it will be too redundant, and that would definitely defeat the purpose of having those extra learning opportunities. Only the presenter and the host. In today's case, for example, Jay and myself, only the two of us would be able to see your messages. So please, today or any other day for any other session, don't bother sending out personal messages. The other thing that is also important before we get to the questions, I am monitoring the system now to see any hand that comes up, and as soon as I detect one, I will stop talking. So if you want me to stop talking, go ahead and raise your hand, pretty much like you just did, Ismail Adebola. So yes, I'm gonna stop talking, but not before. I also highly sort of recommend that, ladies and gentlemen, you try to be on time. If you show up, like I just admitted a few of you about 5 or 10 minutes ago, I still thank you for your attendance. You've tried your very best, and that is very highly commendable. However, in order to take full advantage of any session, it is essential that you try to be on time. I do understand that there is an issue of time differences, but all you have to do is to remember that our sessions in the morning for the United States begin at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So based on that 10 o'clock, you can determine what it's time for you to show up. Of course, I repeat, anytime you show up, it is good. We are happy. But if you can make it on time, that would be the best thing to do. You will end up better off. 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, that definitely means 7 o'clock, like if you're in the area of California. That is 11 o'clock if you are around Brazil. That is 3 o'clock in the afternoon if you are in Ghana. That is uh, I'm sorry, that is 1 o'clock if you are in Ghana. That is 3 o'clock if you are in Nigeria, and so forth, and so on. The only country in Africa that has the same time like it is for me right now, it is South Africa. Well, it's 10 o'clock in the morning for me in Eastern Standard Time. It is 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in South Africa. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, those two comments were really very, very important as we are now going to Ismail Adebola. Thank you for your patience, Ismail, but we are ready for your question. Adebola?
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. Let's go to the question.
Yeah, good morning, the presenter. Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Let's go to
Yeah,
the
thank
question,
you.
please.
Yeah, the presenter, you said you've not gone into the in-depth of the lesson, that you just touched the surface. But I just have a question that can still relate to the surface you touched. But I just want you to enlighten me, please. And the question is this: how can I handle errors and debugging effectively in a JavaScript project?
Yes, yes. So I am yet to begin that part of the session. So we are still in the early days of the series. So I would request you to come to the next session where I will be jumping in to the JavaScript programming stuff, including debugging. However, if you're curious, okay, I'm going to give you a hint. You have to use what is called as the developer tools, right? So let me just show you quickly. So if you go here, go to more tools, and you'll see there is something called developer tools. And now right now I'm on the Google website. Obviously the Google website has a lot of coding files. You can see here, so like this, whatever JavaScript you're practicing will also show up in the sources section. Let me just get my marker here. All right. So what we do is we open whatever file. Now, this is not my file. This is from Google. So let's say this is what I'm debugging. I can quickly go ahead and put a breakpoint like how I did just now. But I will get into the details in the next session if that is okay.
Yeah, thank you, sir. God bless
Yes,
Thank
you.
please
you.
come for the next session. That's my request to you. And of course,
Of
if you're in a
course, but
rush, yeah, I send my YouTube channel link where most of the things I'm teaching are
of course,
already there in far more detail. So
yeah,
yeah,
of course,
so you
by
have
God's grace,
multiple
I will be
options.
there. Yes,
Thank you,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Yeah,
You
very
are
but
welcome.
much.
I did give
You
you
are
part
welcome.
of the solution so you can experiment on your own before I do it in the next session.
Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you very much, Ismail. And Ismail has pledged to be in attendance at the next session, which is what you all, brothers and sisters, shall do. Make sure you pay attention to our announcements when you will find out when the next class by Professor Jay will become available. Uh, there are uh, two elements on the chat box, two postings from Jay that are very, very important. Before we end up the session, ladies and gentlemen, I very highly recommend that you grab those links. One consists of various tutorials that Jay has on the YouTube channel for JavaScript, those GitHub tutorial, and another one is how you can follow Jay from that link. You definitely would be able to raise questions and get some ideas, some hints, some very essential clues as to how you can navigate in a venue, an environment of JavaScript or GitHub. So please grab those links before the session is over. They are on the chat box. Let me quickly go to a question on the chat box from Ibrahim Sori. This is the question, Professor J, from Ibrahim. What advice can you give to someone who doesn't have a good computer, Professor J?
Well, that is, Dr. Watson, the good thing, one of the reasons when I started this series, sir, I actually had multiple options in front of me, like C Sharp and Java and even C++, but I still discussed and arrived at JavaScript because JavaScript is something you can, if you really are in the position like the one you just described, it is something which you can practice directly in the browser, Professor. Now, when I
Okay.
say browser, sir, what I'm saying is even if you have access to a very basic Android tablet, now I'm talking a very budget tablet, Dr. Watson, like something you can get used for 50 USD or 100 USD even if that's all you can get your hands on, as long as you have an internet connection, sir, you can do all the things that we are practicing directly in the browser. So even if you have an old computer, even on a slow internet connection, you can simply, without installing any tools, you will be able to practice all the things that we have discussed so far and all the things we'll discuss till the end of this train.
Thank you very
So,
much.
yes, sir.
I hope, Ibrahim, you got the answer. That's very, very clear answer from Jay. But if I were to sort of summarize any further what Jay has just explained, you don't need the solid computer like i9. You don't need that as long as you have access to the internet. It can be done from a phone, can be done from a tablet, can be done from a very, very basic computer. All you need is the internet. As soon as you are able to go to a browser, because you don't need equipment, you don't need special software. You're simply gonna go to the internet, log into the site, and then do your thing with the browser, with the internet. I hope that is acceptable as an answer, Professor J.
Yes, yes, Dr. Watson, of course, but it will be a frustrating experience, Dr. Walson. We cannot hide that fact, but we all have our limitations. So it is what it is,
Yes,
sir.
yes, yes. There is another one from Jima Musa on the chat block as well. His question is, how can GitHub project apply to civil engineering? I guess that can
The
be done with
same,
any field.
yeah, yes, Dr. Walson, like the same principles, sir. Like as I mentioned in the, one second, Professor. Let me just, right, sir. Like that's the reason I keep going back to this one, Professor. Like here, as you can see, this is a project that I created to manage my YouTube channel. It has
Okay.
nothing to do with software. I mean, it is a YouTube channel at the end of the day. The content might be about software, but this is like, in a way, I'm managing my own video studio, isn't it? So if you're a civil engineer, go ahead, create a project. You're working on multiple houses or a single houses. Every construction has your team of civil engineers. You have payments to do, suppliers to manage. You gotta buy stuff on the first week. You gotta send stuff on the second week. You have to deliver something on the third week. Isn't every project ultimately the same, Professor? Whether it is software or sand?
Okay. Thank you very much. Uh, Brothers and sisters, has nothing to do with software. You can apply JavaScript, apply GitHub project with any field, any system, any group, as long as you're able to get on the internet. You can interact with other people if you have a connection to the internet. All right. Uh, Very unfortunately, I don't see other people with their hands up at this time, but I do understand we're talking about some kind of complicated field, and Professor Jay has rightly emphasized for you, brothers and sisters, that you need to do your own practice. As long as you have a hand on how to go there, then your trial and error practice will be sufficient for you to, jump ahead and, manage to be successful. Some people are somewhat late to raise their hands as we have run out of time already, but let's just allow Ishake Mohammed, whom I admitted just a short while ago, if my recollection is clear. But let's go ahead and allow Ishake to ask the last question. Go ahead, Ishake.
Hi, Professor. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My question is a quick one. I want to find out from Jay if it's possible we could get some of this software downloaded on our PCs so we could practice and we don't rely only on the GitHub, because sometimes you find some people might not have internet connection, and it becomes a limitation to some of us who are in remote areas to practice the way we have to. So if there is a way you could give us a tutorial or a step-by-step procedure to get this software downloaded on our PCs, where we could use them as a standalone machines and do our practice and have the required experience as we're supposed to. Thank you.
Professor Jay.
Yes, yes. So, right, Dr. Walls, this is one of those moments when a software tutor expresses his helplessness because, unfortunately, Professor, the trend in the last 20 years, it doesn't matter what you're doing in technology, the assumption is you always have some kind of internet access. So the days of offline software and download software are unfortunately behind us, my dear student. So if you don't have internet, then I'm afraid,
Yes.
sadly you're left behind. I don't know how else to put it, Professor. It's not a technology problem. It's just where we are.
Yes. The world nowadays, you must have some type of communication. I don't know how that works in Africa or in some other continents, but here in the United States, there are some devices that are just wireless
Yeah,
hotspot.
yeah. There you go, Professor. Yes,
You
like
have a
like a
wireless
dish or something. Yes, sir.
Yes, you can have access to the internet through that device, regardless of where you are, how mountainous your region is. If you have that hotspot, that mobile hotspot that you take with you anywhere, you don't need the government, you don't need your subscription. The hotspot will give you access to the internet. But of course, I don't know how that works in some other continents. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so sorry to be about to close this session. I know some of you have asked some other questions, like is there a free application or do we have to pay a subscription? The basic subscription to GitHub is free. But of course, for some specific or higher end features, you have to pay a subscription. That's the way it works for virtually all platforms in the world. We are ready now to wrap up this session. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, on behalf of Atlantic International University, I want to say thank you very, very much. But just before we go, we're going to go back real quick to Professor Jay for a conclusion to his superb presentation. Professor Jay.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. So, guys, as always, the ending from me is literally the same thing I do. I've been doing these sessions for years now, so I'm very happy and proud to say that I've been seeing Dr. Watson for so long now, and again, I'm very happy about that. So it's the same thing every time, guys. Remember, I've given you a one-sheet document. Please download it before the Zoom session gets over. I shared with you some links. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. There are a lot more tutorials there, and I'm always adding. You saw the dashboard today. I have videos coming up already scheduled till November, and more things are being added and stuff like that. And of course, if you go to my GitHub, you'll find many demo projects. You have many opportunities to get in touch with me. And as always, you can always email to me or raise an issue, put your question on my GitHub account, and I reply within 24 hours. And as always, practice, practice, practice. All my sessions are packed. These are technology sessions. When I'm doing it, it looks very easy, of course, but you have to understand, for every session I do for you, I spend 2 to 4 hours practicing and preparing. So there's a lot of content coming there. So that's all from me, Dr. Watson. And as always, guys, if you want to know more about me, you can just Google my name, or I've already given you the links. Remember to take the links and download the file before the Zoom session gets over, because you can't get it out.